Welcome, everybody. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? Um, well, thank you so much for joining us for the Careers in Data panel. I am your moderator, Audra Gracia. My pronouns are she and her. Um, and we're going to go ahead and get started. It's about 3 after the hour, so I think a lot of people have already trickled in and joined. Um, and I'll get started by introducing myself, and then we will ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and we can kick this off. So, again, my name is Audra Gracia. I am a longtime political operative and pivoted my career to data back around 2015 and have been really active in the data and technology space ever since. I now own my own consulting business, Gracia Collaborative, and where I do mostly technical and data project management. You see me today. It's a bit odd, but I'm in uniform. I also am an Army reservist, and I work for the 75th Innovation Command, which also focuses on big tech and data in government and military. So a little bit of diversity there in terms of career paths. But enough about me. We're really here to hear from our wonderful panelists today. So I will ask them to all introduce themselves. And let's start with Stephanie. And then Stephanie, if you want to popcorn it over to another panelist after you.
Sure. Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Hendrick. I use she, her pronouns. I'm located in Washington, D.C. I am the Vice President of Data and Analytics at the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. And I've been in politics since about 2012 when I started as a field organizer, and then I moved over into data in 2014. I worked on a bunch of Florida races and lots of different kinds of like political data organizations, like state parties and committees and campaigns and stuff like that. So I'm excited to talk about a career trajectory here. Mahalo, you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you. So hey everyone, I'm Mahalo Fakata. My pronouns are she, her. I'm based in the DC area as well. Currently, I am the data science lead at Color of Change, and I've been in this space for about 4 years. And I've only worked at the intersection between like data and politics. So in the past, I've been a consultant and have worked on a presidential primary campaign and now work for a nonprofit. And I will kick it to Jen.
Hey, I'm Jen Cervella. I use she, her pronouns, and I am in Chicago. I run the political partnerships for Civis Analytics, which is a data science software firm in the political space. But I've been working in politics since around 2011 when I was on the streets of LA asking people to sign a petition for Quality California. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So the way this will work today is we're just going to ask a series of questions to our panelists. I believe we will have the opportunity for you all to ask questions in the chat box, or feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and we will get to those as we can throughout the conversation. So the first question is to tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you came to serve in your current position. So you already described what you do for a living, but would love to know a little bit deeper about your story of self, if you will. And let's go in the opposite order for this question. Jen, do you want to start?
Sure. I started working in politics after the John Boehner lied to the American people about how abortions were funded and what Title X was about. And I decided that I wanted to get involved. So I started organizing. And then I moved back home to Texas, where I'm originally from. And I started working on environmental issues, canvassing, and getting support. I was in field until 2014, where I gave a really good band training for the state party, and they decided to turn me into a deputy. And I taught myself how to write code. I taught myself how to build dashboards, and that turned into a whole career. And I got to work for AFSCME, which is the public sector union, and I got to learn a lot about like building pipelines and automations, which got me onto this data engineering track. And I eventually went to Emily's List to be their deputy CTO. And there I managed the data team and worked on the data warehouse, and working on data warehouses multiple times in my career, but never having like bought one. I decided to go to Citus Analytics, where I help people figure out how to match technology data products to the campaigns that they're working on or the issues that they're trying to advance. Throughout my career, I've noticed that when you have numbers behind you, then you can like better make your argument and people tend to listen to you more. As a woman who is, in data, it's pretty hard oftentimes to be heard. And so building things that displayed the truth without a lot of like back and forth about who built it was really helpful in my career to like even the playing field a little bit more.
Awesome. Mahalo?
Yeah, so I joined the space in the summer of 2017. It was a year after I graduated college, and obviously the election in 2016 inspired me to like join and like get involved in politics. So in college, I did a lot of research on like poli-sci, political science research on like political behavior. So I came across an internship with the Analyst Institute, which is like a research organization in the space that does research to understand like how to get people out to vote and get people to support kind of candidates that believe in my values. So kind of, I didn't want to commit full time to this industry because I just like wanted to like see if I liked it. So did an internship, really liked the work, the people I work with like me. So that ended up becoming a full-time role and was there for about 2.5 years. And even though I really liked the work, I felt like I wasn't kind of on the ground and really like kind of helping programs change, because a lot of the analyses you do is like after the fact. So you like, you are doing analysis after people have voted. So you don't really have space to change program while it's running. So I got the opportunity to join the Elizabeth Warren's Audra.
I'm a Warren
Elizabeth Warren, campaign for president, where I had the ability to like support the fundraising team and do a bunch of analysis that helped us, raise a lot of money and help fund our entire organization. And then after that, I was looking for my next role and taking a more of a leadership position and management position. So had the opportunity to join Color of Change, and I was really excited because like this space is very like white and there are very few like Black-led organizations. So to be able to be a Black woman, to work for like a Black-led organization, to bring my data skills and help kind of grow the next generation of data practitioners was an opportunity I couldn't say no to. So yeah, that is my journey so far.
Awesome.
And then,
Stephanie. Oh.
So I have less of a formal research background, kind of similar to Jen. Kind of came up in the fire of like, I had to figure out how to do this, and so I guess I have to learn SQL now. And I originally got started back in 2012 because I had been teaching English in Spain. Because like after college, I didn't know what to do with my life. I'd got like a humanities degree and majored in Spanish, and then there was the recession. And so I just left the country for 3 years and did this like program. And I thought that I was going to head into education because I didn't really have any other ideas. And I thought that like this is fine. But I was, staying at my parents' house in Tampa, Florida, like you do after you get out of college or like after you don't know what you're doing with your life. And this was the summer of 2012, and a field organizer from the campaign, the field office in my hometown of actually Brandon, Florida, was just doing like prospecting volunteer recruitment calls because he called my dad, and my dad has never volunteered in his life. No one in my family has ever been involved in politics. I had no idea that people even volunteered for political campaigns. But they called my dad because he had given like, I don't know, $10 to Obama for the reelect, and called in and asked him to volunteer. And he was like, no. But he passed the phone to me because I didn't have anything going on. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a plan. I was living at home at 24 years old. So he passed it to me, and I was like, sure, whatever, I'll go. I'm not doing anything. And that meeting was to a neighborhood team leader conference in Tampa in order to try to help, bring the different neighborhood teams across Tampa together. And I'd said that I'd heard something about a fellowship program, and my field organizer was like, yes, please, can you please help me? I'm so tired and I really need fellows. So I became a fellow and basically like a full-time volunteer. And then eventually in August of 2012, I got hired as a field organizer and as in Tampa for Obama for the reelect. And that really changed everything for me. I met such great people. I experienced I'd never done anything. I'd like volunteered a lot in high school, but those were for like different organizations who were like, oh, let's find some dumb thing for this high school kid to do, like pick up trash or whatever. Not that that's dumb, but you know what I mean? Like it's not organizing people. So I feel like I learned a lot of new skills and had a lot of new experiences that I really liked and I wanted to continue doing. So I kept on in field for a little while, but I think it just like the emotional part of it really got hard for me. My next job, actually there were a lot of strings of like, little jobs in order to make ends meet in between, but I eventually started working for Enroll America for the Obamacare enrollment, basically for the very first enrollment period back in 2013. And that was organizing volunteers to talk to other neighbors in order to get them to sign up for Obamacare. And that was really even harder, like because you really have to tap into the emotional part of it, which is, everyone needs healthcare. They're like, nearly everyone that we were talking to had experienced themselves or like a close family member of like not having health insurance, not having access to medications being too expensive, stuff like that. So all of that organizing was just like really took a huge emotional toll. And so I attended a data boot camp that was hosted by the New Organizing Institute, which does not exist anymore, unfortunately. I still know and meet people from there all the time, though. Like I love NOI alum. Did an NOI data boot camp, which taught me all of the skills that were needed in order to have like some kind of data role on a campaign. And then that was when I moved into data in 2014 for the Charlie Crist for Governor campaign in Florida and became a deputy data director then. And so since 2014, I've been in data roles. Let's see, in 2014, it was Charlie Crist. We lost the general election. In 2015, I became the data director of the Florida Democratic Party. So moving from like, I had worked on campaigns and then I was on the state party, which, as the voter file manager, you work with the DNC in order to get the Florida voter file to them and they clean it and like, it makes it accessible for everyone in the space that uses voter files. And also helping with like the state like the House and Senate caucuses and like county parties, like managing Vote Builder and doing Vote Builder trainings for those county parties. That was a really fun, interesting time. But again, meeting lots of different people in the political space. Then I got kind of the opportunity of a lifetime to work for Hillary Clinton in 2016 in headquarters, doing analysis for a lot of like field support really for the primary states. That was really huge. And really that's where I met like a lot of people that helped me later in my career. That's where I met Audra. And and actually I also forgot to mention Jen and I were at the same like when we were both state party voter file managers, we went to a DNC meeting and that's where I met her originally. And we were like, are you Filipino? I'm Filipino. Oh my God. Like, what are the chances that never happens?
Yeah. Small data world.
Sorry?
It's a small data world for sure.
Yeah.
Especially for women of color.
Well, yeah. So that was another thing. Like this was a meeting of like state party voter file managers and there was like 5 women and like very few not white people. So yeah, we found each other. It was fun. Yeah, so after Hillary, I worked for Tom Perriello on his primary campaign in Virginia. Then regional targeting director at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I almost forgot how to say that because everyone just says the D-trip. That was really cool too, to finally win, because in 2018, we finally took back the House, but I had lost everything since 2012. Like everything had just been really sad between 2012 and 2018. It happens. It's a thing. If you're working in politics, it's going to happen a lot. Yeah. And then after that, I worked at a consulting firm doing like targeting for mail and digital for, lots of like state legislative races across the country. And now I am in charge of analytics at the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. So I think the only thing that I haven't worked on yet is a US Senate race. And I haven't worked directly on a like state ledge race, but I've done a lot of the different kinds of things that there are in progressive data.
Awesome. Thank
I
you,
just took a really
Stephanie.
long time. Sorry. I was wondering. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, we are trying to keep the answers to 2 to 3 minutes, so we have plenty of time. But that's great. It's good to know sort of the trajectory everybody has taken, and as you can see, it can be very different for people. So why don't we? And Stephanie, you kind of went through this in your talk already, but Jen and Mollet, we would love to hear from you on like what your day to day, your typical day in your current role looks like. And Stephanie, you should answer this too, since you didn't talk too much about the DLCC. But let's do that. Mala?
Yeah. So currently, like a big part of my role is partnering with like the different teams on staff to kind of think through projects, and then like assign those projects out to like the various members of like the data and analytics team. Right now, we're in the middle of end of year fundraising. So if folks are not aware, like this period of time is kind of the best time for like nonprofits and campaigns to raise a large chunk of money. So like all of my focus has been supporting the fundraising, the digital fundraising team. So part of it is like talking through the digital fundraising director, typical day to day is like talking to her to figure out like what are like the reporting needs she has in the team, the targeting needs, so that I could talk to my team and delegate out that work. I think that's like I think that's like my main focus. So it's just been like a lot of meetings, reviewing people's work, and just making sure that like stakeholders are aware of like what we're doing, what our blockers are, and how timelines need to change. And I will kick it to Jen.
A typical day does not exist, but I guess most of what I do is connect people with software or analytics. So if you're a campaign who is trying to figure out which firm you want to hire to build support models, for example, that's something that I can help with. We build all of this stuff, and I guess internally, my role is essentially a project manager for a sale or a proposal. So I work between different technical teams to answer questions for clients about how things work, how things should work, and giving like best practices and advice. So a lot of times that means I'm translating extremely technical things to people who do not write code. A big part of my job is talking about like creative testing, and a lot of the people that we talk to who run creative tests are like the creatives themselves. So the people who make the ads, the people who draft the messages. And I think like for a lot of folks, the science behind message testing or like any kind of randomized control trial is a bit of a black box. And so like my role is really to translate the science to layman's terms so that anybody can have access to scientific rigor to make decisions without having the barrier of writing code as a blocker.
Another fun connection fact is that I held this essentially the same position that Jen currently holds at Civis when I first started my analytics career. Civis actually took a leap of faith on me, and I tried to pitch myself to them as somebody who could do this, but I was making it up the entire time because I had no idea what I was doing. Everything I learned about analytics started at Civis, and so I was very fortunate to have that opportunity, but it is a fun role to play, that translator role. Stephanie, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do at the DLCC every day?
Yeah, sure. So I just started in July of this year. So I haven't been. We've just been through the 2021 elections. So I haven't been through like a full cycle. But as VP of Analytics, I see my role in like two major buckets, which would be analytics for the DLCC of like making us more efficient and able to do better work, whether that's optimizing fundraising, helping the finance department or the digital department kind of sift through the kinds of donations that we've been getting and try to make it better. Or giving information giving information to the comms department if they want to write a press release that is like touting an achievement of ours in order to get us better press and stuff like that. So there's the internal stuff for the DLCC, and then also a very large part of that during the campaign cycle is helping state caucuses, whether it's state house or state senate caucuses, really all of them across the country. We are there as a resource for all of the caucuses across the country in order to help them run better campaigns, because we know that so many of them are understaffed or underfunded. But we also internally have a goal of, maintaining Democratic majorities in chambers and also creating Democratic majorities in chambers. So we have targeted chambers, but where we, put a little bit more investment and staff time in on those. But, we're there to support every single caucus there is across the country. So, and that's a lot of like, we're about to hire regional coordinators in order to help, set up everyone's vote builder, because there's like hardly any caucuses that actually have a dedicated data staffer. And a lot of times the state party person doesn't have time to like set up everything specifically for the House and Senate candidates either. So we would, help with all the targeting and make sure everything's set up in their vote builder and like, how to load a script, and like now we need to move this into the texting stuff. So like all of the like data infrastructure stuff for campaigns is what we're helping with.
Awesome. I'm going to go a bit off script from the questions we had prepared for this, but it strikes me that all of you have risen to roles of like managerial roles essentially in your work. And I'd love for you to just talk really quickly about, in data roles, there's really two types. There's the individual contributor roles and the managerial roles. And I think there's tremendous value in both types of roles. So can you talk a little bit about the difference and some of the challenges, you know, uh, I think with the managerial roles, but how that transition can look for you. And let's start with Jen.
That's a really good question. I was a manager at Emily's List, and I'm more of an independent contributor now. And I think that a lot of management for me is like thinking about how to support the person and like making them feel like they can succeed, and having them like I view management as like, one, you are a mentor to like help people, and then two, like we also have shit to get done, so like let's get it done and like let's the timelines. And I think that like the biggest struggle there for me was straddling that line and being able to both be a mentor and also like hold people accountable. And as an independent contributor, I think that the struggle that I most often face is, I think, because I am not in manager meetings, because I am not a manager, there's like a lot of information that I have to get secondhand about things. And oftentimes like managers have like manager meetings, which means that like I'm siloed out of those informational meetings. So I have to work a little bit harder to be connected and get all of the information that I need to be successful at my job.
Interesting. Mahala?
Yeah, I think that this is a great question. And I think I'm in this position where I'm currently holding two roles, which is generally not advisable. So I'm both an independent contributor and manager and can talk about the struggles I face there. I think one thing is that like I feel like there is a struggle between like being a good independent contributor and then being a good manager, where like you're working on your own project with deadlines, but your team is as well, and your responsibilities is supporting your team to meet their deadlines. So a lot of the time, like I think my work gets pushed on the back burner, understandably, to support my team. So I think that that is like one struggle that I face. And also, I'm a new manager, so I feel like all the new manager like kind of struggles you kind of deal with. So it's like, how do you give good feedback? How do you set expectations clearly? Like how best to delegate? So those are the things that I'm struggling with, and yeah, so like with both, yeah.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a new manager too. At Berlin Rosen, my last job in the consulting firm, I managed one person like during the cycle for about 3 months, and I hadn't had like formal management experience before then. So now at the DLCC, I manage two people, and one of the people that I manage will be managing five coordinators. So the way that I think about it is that, I mean, like Jen said, supporting the person, because we already did all of the work of finding the right person with the right skills for this job. And so I need to let them do it, like let them be brilliant and like do what they do. And I just remove blockers. I let like help them solve problems, when we're like, why doesn't my code work? Put it in the Slack, and then we'll all like look at it and like, oh, it's this. So yes, the main thing is just I want to, manage the work of my department, obviously, like make sure everything gets done, but, give my staff the freedom to creatively solve the problems and to remove blockers in their way. That's what I see my role as. Earlier in my career, I used to struggle with the idea of like, oh, if I become a manager, I will no longer be doing the thing. And I want to do the thing. I like sitting down and zoning out and working really hard on a problem until I realize that it's like 6 hours later and I haven't eaten and my eyes hurt. That's how I used to see things. But I have gotten, I maybe just like as I've gotten older, like I've both wanted to do that a little bit less and also just see that it's like really fun and cool to manage people and projects. So that was kind of a slow change that happened.
Awesome.
Another thing, I used to think that it was going to be hard to delegate because I was the person who liked to do the thing. But it's been really fun to see how my staff like creatively solve problems or just like come up with like even better solutions that I couldn't even imagine. So
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a really good point of when more brains are on something, problems get easier to solve and are usually solved in a better way. Um, so I want to do a really quick rapid fire one question for you all. So just and it's going to be challenging, but name the top, like if you could say one thing, or if it's a person or something you did along your career that you believe has led to your success, um, what is that?
Yeah, I'll
uh,
go first.
what?
I can go first. It's the boot camps. It's the data camps. I went
Awesome.
to the NOI Wellstone one.
Right. Yep. Stephanie, what about you?
well, I mean, aside from that, because that was like literally the door to this career, being flexible. I don't know. Like earlier in my career, like saying like, yeah, like saying yes. I don't know. Like, even if I don't think that I can do that thing right now, but just like, yeah, I'll get there. Like, I'll figure it out. But just say yes so that you can give yourself the opportunity to show someone.
So a yes mindset, maybe. Mahalo? Oh,
I clicked the wrong button. Yeah, I think like related to Stephanie, like maybe like flexibility and the willingness to like learn like different things. So like when people like, for example, I'm like leading on deliverability, which is kind of generally outside of a data person's scope, but it's just to make sure that like your emails are ending up in people's inbox by being like, yes, this is interesting. I'm learning a new skill and being open to like different opportunities that initially at first might not seem kind of within your wheelhouse.
awesome. Because this is quick, I'll answer it too. For me, it was letting go of the chip on my shoulder. I was like an old school campaign person and came up in the old school way of thinking, and I just had to get rid of that thinking and thinking that 25-year-olds couldn't possibly like know more than me about campaigns and politics, and just let it go and really learn from smart people. So, um, awesome. So let's talk about. Oh, this is a good one. When you're thinking about, and now especially since you all have probably been in hiring manager roles as well, when applying for data positions, what is important to highlight in your resume, in a resume, or in an interview process? And Mahalo, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that there are like a couple things that come to mind for me. I think one would be highlighting experiences, like learning new tools and skills kind of on the job and kind of in a quick turnaround. Because I think that we've all had experiences when someone's like, hey, can you do this thing? Use this tool you've never used before. You have like a couple days to do it. So being able to show examples where you've done something similar. And I think a lot of things are like, I think soft skills kind of in this space. So I think that like, experiences where like you have project management skills explaining like complex topics to kind of folks who don't have that kind of subject area expertise are really good to highlight. And then also like if you like personally, like for me, like I didn't come in with like an organizing background, so like it's really important to like articulate like why you're interested in politics if your resume doesn't have like political experience prior. And I'll kick it to Jen.
I think all of that is important. I think I think about critical thinking. Um, so like I am looking for folks who are inquisitive, who want to know the reasons why, and who don't necessarily just like take the face value. One of the reasons that I learned SQL was because somebody submitted a ticket in Vote Builder that said this person is tagged to the wrong precinct. Why? And it turns out after months of digging, the data was incorrect and we needed to rebuild the voter file. And in order to build a voter file, you've got to learn a lot of skills. And so I think like there's a difference between like dying on a hill and like solving problems critically. And I think being able to highlight where you've thought critically in the interview process is extremely important.
Awesome, Stephanie.
This is I have a lot. I have some like specific things because right now I was helping on the hiring committee for organizing director for the DLCC, and we just posted our job position for regional data coordinators for the DLCC. So if you want to apply, that's a thing. Things that I have some specifics that I'm looking for. So one, tailor your resume to the job. So important. There's been some times that like people have applied and I know that they have state legislative experience, but they didn't put the state legislative experience on their like resume, which like being a committee that works with state legislative stuff, you should highlight that because because let's be honest, like if you've worked on campaigns, your resume is like very long, so you're only putting the highlights on there anyway. So yeah, make sure that the bullet points for each of the jobs that you have are tailored to the job. Like that seems simple, but a lot of times I know it's hard because when you're applying for jobs, you just like, it's like a job in itself and all that. But like, it really does matter to put the detail in to each of the resumes and make sure that you are telling the prospective employer, like why you can do exactly the job that they want you to do and more. The second thing that I think is really important, especially if you're writing a cover letter, is to say like, don't just say, I just really want this job because I'm really experienced. what I'm looking for is like, I want this job because I want to learn how to do this. I want this job because I want to help people do this, because like, because your goal is this and that is also my goal. Or like I'm looking for someone who has their own drive to do something with this job that I have, because I'm going to invest everything that I can in order to make sure you have the experience, or you get the experience that you want to have. Like, um, some of my staffers want to do more stuff with Python, and so we had like a framework for an election night report before, but she got to edit her Python, even though like it wasn't even, she doesn't like formally know it, but like she was able to like edit it to make the scripts to make all of the reports go, and that was something that she wanted to do herself. Same thing with like getting more into like digital analytics. So yeah, have like a, like, I want to do this with this job, not just like, I really want this job. Have that attitude as you're preparing your materials. And that I I would love to see that in more resumes.
Awesome. What has been the most surprising? And I'll expand this. This question was originally about your current role, but just about this world in general, that intersection of data and politics. What has been the most surprising thing to you uh, in your career? Um, Jen, want to kick this one off?
I think the most surprising thing to me was how like the the money laws really affect how we can do our jobs, and it affects the type of information that people have access to, and overcoming that barrier is extremely difficult, and a lot of the work is not about writing the best code or displaying the best information. It's also about the people and like managing those people. And I just didn't really realize that like politics is also small p politics more often than it is big P politics.
Awesome. Mahalat? Oh, we lost you
Sorry,
again.
that happened again. Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think of like one of the most surprising things about this space, but I think one is like the space is really small and everyone knows each other. And I think that that can have like a big impact when you're like applying to roles, and just knowing people or just having a good reputation. That has definitely helped me so far. So I think, yeah, like how small this space is and kind of how everyone knows each other.
I'm going to put a fine point on what you just said there and say for better or worse. So be nice. Just be nice to people. That's like a really simple thing, but it really matters and people remember that sort of thing. It took me way too long in my career, early political career, to learn that, honestly. So, learn from my mistake. Stephanie, go ahead.
No, yeah, I would totally agree. Because, if you're a hiring manager and you've got like 20 resumes and you have to like sift through them, and you're going to have to do interviews and then like an assessment and then like final interviews and all that stuff, a you're going to use the shortcuts that you can, because like, a lot of people are like well qualified for a job, and that's why there is a job search process. But like, you better believe I'm gonna like try to find someone that I've worked with that you also worked with. Um, I feel like people that have worked on a lot of campaigns, we know a lot of people. Like, when you start working on a campaign and you're on a team of like 30 people, and then every one of you goes to another team of 30 people, like, we all know each other. And sometimes it really comes down to like, do I know that I can effectively communicate with this person? And like, even if they don't immediately have the skills to do the job today, do I know that they are a really hard worker and like take feedback really well and all those things? Like, that's the person at the end of the day that I'm going to want to hire.
Awesome. And we do have a question in the chat that I wanted to lift up. So Jeremy Jones is asking, can we get more details on the boot camps? And I am actually a little unplugged on what boot camps are out there. So does anybody who wants to take this question?
Well, I did found an organization that runs trainings that we don't call boot camps, called She. But I think there are a few different camps that are out there that are intended.
What is your organization, Jen?
Oh, it's called Change the Game.
Thank you. Go ahead.
There are a lot. These organizations also like Repower, also known as Wellstone previously, organizations that attempt to do what like GA or Flatiron try to do, where they like teach you data science skills, they teach you data engineering skills, and then they try to place you in an organization. To touch back on the point that like this is a very small community and you need to make friends. This is an opportunity for you to network with the people who are doing the work currently. And I think that we've been doing boot camps since boot camps have been happening since the re-elect in 2012, which is like the catalyst for the industry, right? But I think there are more organizations that are doing more boot camps and providing these networking opportunities, a lot like Democratic Game.
Awesome. Anybody else have anything to add there?
Jen mentioned GA. That's for General Assembly, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. There's also Arena Academy, I think, does some really great trainings in like data and management and digital stuff. I know they used to be in person. I'm not as plugged into that stuff anymore, but also Change the Game is great. I've been a trainer for that a few times.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat. But if not, we will continue on. And Tim, can you just like keep me on target with time checks and stuff if I'm starting to go over? Sorry. Okay, now we're just going to kind of go off script a little bit because we have a little bit more time. Would love to hear about, so we've talked a lot about like the good of this world, right? Would love to hear about some of the more challenging aspects of being in data and politics. Jen, it looks like you have an answer. I'll start with you.
I think like a lot of Democratic politics is like playing politics, especially in DC. I think a lot of why I left DC is because it's like it permeates into everything that you do. Because you can't escape the work a lot of times. You're just so invested in the mission, and then you're working with people who are also invested in the mission in their own ways. And so you are trying to not only do your job, but also accomplish this very large goal that is so vital to your being. And like being able to have work-life balance is really hard. And I think that like being in the industry during Me Too is also very difficult, because I think that a lot of us who have been in the industry a long time are like coming to a reckoning that like this behavior that like we've been told to deal with, we don't really have to. And like that has created something that is, I mean, I'm excited by it. It's also like really like personally difficult. And so I think like the biggest challenge for me in the work is separating what I want to do with like the mission and that work and like the paycheck work, because capitalism is structure and like we all have bills to pay. So
awesome. Stephanie, you want to go next?
Yeah. I think that I probably learned a lot of terrible examples of like work life from campaigns. Back in 2012, when I was a field organizer, just everything was working all the time. There was no life outside of working. It was like sleep a little, and then everything was like reaching my very high to me at least, field goals. And then that kind of also followed me into data on campaigns. But it's even kind of worse then because you have to be in front of a computer the whole time. And whether you're working in like Excel or coding with SQL, when you are tired, you will make a lot more mistakes. And you also won't be able to find the mistakes because you're going to be so tired that you can't find them. And then it's just going to be like a cycle of being too tired to work well. Also, like being in a campaign office is like often not conducive to the kind of like coding work specifically because you've got a whole bunch of different processes that you're writing out, and if you lose your train of thought because like there's meetings all day long and like something's happening, there's like a fire drill with comms and you have to stop this and like do this other thing, it gets really hard to get interrupted and to come back to that work. You can try to like put noise canceling headphones on, but like if your political director needs you to do something right now, you like have to do it, and like you're just going to have to figure out how to get back to the spot that you were just at. So yeah, the negative would be sometimes in the early days of your career, it's going to be like really hard work and long hours and not a whole lot of pay. I think nowadays pay is a lot better than when I was starting, and also like a lot of places are unionizing, so that is great because I would love for other people to not have the same kinds of like bad workplace experiences that I had.
Awesome. Thank you. Mahalo?
Yeah, I think everyone's touched on this, but we'll just do like another point. It's just like work-life balance. I think that like we're like all committed to like the missions of the organization or the candidate we're working on, and it's like very, very easy for like your entire life to be revolving around work. And I think especially now because of the pandemic, there isn't like a clear separation between like work-life balance. So I think that is the biggest thing for me, and like realizing that like I can't give my work my all if I'm like working all the time. Like it's important for me and important for the organization for me to take breaks, to take vacations, to stop working at 6. That it's like beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, awesome. So we got some questions from the group. Can you all talk about finding entry level data positions for the midterms? Um, who does anybody? And these questions should just volunteers.
I'm hiring now, actually. I was just trying to pull up the job description actually because I think it technically says about it like preferred experience. Oh, okay. At least one cycle of that's what it says. At least one cycle of campaign experience. But I will also say, I always encourage everyone always to apply for the job that you want. Like if you think that you're not like, oh no, I don't meet like each of the bullet points, whatever, do it anyway, because like at the end of the day, when we're hiring, we have like fewer actual like hard requirements. Like, have you done anything like this ever before? Like especially when it comes to like entry level positions. That's kind of the beauty of that, which is like, if you can show that you can learn it, everyone that's hiring for an entry level position, like they know that you have never done it, like it's entry level. So it's more about showing that you can learn how to do it. So yeah, regional targeting coordinators. I think that the job just went up like yesterday at the DLCC website, and will be, I think it's open through like January 15th. If you want to get your materials together. Also, right now, and we work with a lot of the caucuses, obviously. Right now, they're still hiring like upper level staff. They're looking for like, actually, no, the entry level staff, I know that they're all hiring like finance assistants. So if you're interested in finance, like every state party and caucus is hiring for that right now. Some places like ops assistants. Sorry, my Slack is happening.
That's okay. And I would also add that Progressive Data Jobs is a great resource. but Jen or Mahalo, did you have anything to add in terms of finding entry? Oh, and there was a sort of rider to this, which is especially for people who don't program. Um, so finding the entry level jobs for the midterms, maybe in data, but for people who don't currently know how to program.
I think especially if like you've never worked on a campaign before, but you want to get in the industry, it's really important to knock on doors or do some kind of voter contact. You gotta know what the conversation looks like in order to do any kind of analysis that is meaningful. Because I think that oftentimes, if you're coming into the industry from a place of like, well, I wrote code for Google, I should be able to do this anywhere. Like, sure, yes, and I'm sure that your coding skills are very valuable, but the thing that is important in the industry is having that face-to-face voter contact and understanding what those conversations look like so that you can have that context when you're doing other work. So if you were like working in restaurants, applying for like field organizer is a really great way to like transition your way out of restaurants and into something like data. And then like when you have the opportunity to use the CRM, like Action Kit or Van or whatever the campaign happens to be using, like the texting tool, become an expert in that and start training people to do it. And then those skills become like, you can build those skills and become the person who manages that thing. And then you can like change your title and then you can update your resume. But like, remember that it's like a long game. So
Awesome. Mahalo, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I recommend progressive data jobs for entry level jobs. And then also I know that a lot of like the D-Trip or the DSCC, they have like resume talent banks where you can like submit your resume on their website and they can connect you with a campaign. And I think that they would connect you with like a lot of good entry level data jobs that don't require programming.
Awesome. Another question from the group: can you explain the differences between working on specific candidate campaigns versus bigger organizations? And for those of us who have worked on, I think all of us have worked on presidential, so those are bigger organizations too. Oh, Jen, I thought you worked in. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, if Mahalo, do you want to take this one first, since you went from Warren to where you're at now?
Yeah, so I think there are like a lot of differences, so we'll highlight two of them. I think we talked about before, but like work-life balance, I think is a bigger one. Like on the Warren campaign, I think I was near the end, I was working every day, like on the weekends as well and working pretty late because it's such a short time thing. So you want to put in your all to like get things done. So I think that is the one difference between working at a campaign during like versus like a larger organization. I think in terms of like data, it's thinking through like long-term infrastructure. I feel like a lot of the time you're building code for just like such a short period of time to use for like a day or two. So sometimes you're not like coding the best, or you're not thinking through like how can this scale up and how can I use this like every day. Whereas like in this organization of Color of Change, you're really thinking through like how do I build something that will last beyond me and last a couple years. And I think that is like a big difference, especially on the data side. And then kick it to anyone who's ready to talk.
Stephanie?
Yeah, the times that I have worked for big organizations are really when I feel like I learned so many new skills. When I went from, so like my first data job was a deputy data director for the Charlie Crist campaign, and then I became the like state voter file manager after that campaign was over. And I only worked with like my boss and like one other deputy, and we all had so much work to do that we really just kind of like did, my manager taught me how to do all the early vote reporting and like managing like vote by mail applications through this website, stuff like that, and like progress to goal reports and for field and stuff like that. So I learned, the skills to do my job there. But when I went to the Hillary campaign, I sat across from a data science department. Like, what? I went to Florida State as a humanities major. Like, what am I doing sitting across from like a whole, like, I almost cursed, a whole like data science department, like right across from me, and like fundraising analytics. And like, I was in states analytics and like reporting and like just this huge team of people who were similar to me, where I could just stand up and be like, hey, how do I do this? And they'd be like, blah, like, just like shout it back to me. I learned so much from being around so many other people. A lot of times, specifically in data, when you're on a campaign, you're the one person who's doing all of it. Like, you have to do the like long-term planning and the targeting, like for all of the phases of the campaign, but you also have to like help field organizers make sure they know how to use Google Sheets and like all of these things. And it can be really lonely because like nobody understands you and everyone thinks that your job and what you do is just magic and that you don't have to work really hard on it. People like it can be really lonely on campaigns. So that's like the difference to me of like being the one person, like mostly on a candidate campaign, you'll in data specifically, you'll be the one person with your kind of skills and nobody else will really understand your skills. But on the presidential and also when I was at the D trip, I worked with, there were 4 other regional targeting directors. There were like the national targeting and analytics team. And also those are places where like I made connections like for life. Like we all got to kind of band together. So yeah, I would say the big organizations, you learn a lot. And the smaller organizations, you learn from doing because you have to.
Jen, did you have anything to add?
I would just I've never worked directly on a campaign. I've only worked for large organizations. So I'll be the one that like is the wet blanket on the big organizations. Oftentimes you like they don't move fast. And like the fact that they exist, the fact that they're big, the fact that you know their name, that all of that exists for a reason. And so like if you think that you're going to come in as like the person who innovates the whole organization that is 500 people large, you're not. And that's like that's a goal that's going to beat you down as somebody who did that for a year and a half of her life. It's just you've got to have patience to work in big organizations and understand which of the battles you should pick to fight, because if you fight all of them, you're going to make more enemies than friends, and you need more friends in this industry.
Well, Jen, we just got to recruit you over to the campaign side soon. For folks who don't know me, I am often trying to encourage people to get a cycle under their belt in the field on campaigns. I do a lot of sort of career coaching and stuff. Great. Let's see. I'm going to go back. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions from the team. I can only see the private chat right now. I'm saying this out loud, but so I apologize if you do have a question. Our tech moderator should be putting it in the private chat. But anyway, so okay, so that's all the questions we've got. Great. So I guess for final kind of, I know we have a little bit of extra time, but I would love to, because I just want to do a time check. We have 15 more minutes. Is that right? Or yes. Okay. Thank you. So would like to kind of start closing out. Is there, can each of you go around and tell us like the one piece of advice you got in your career? I know we talked about sort of something that has made you successful, but can you talk about a piece of advice that you got throughout your career that has stuck with you, that you have really clung on to, and that you think has helped you during the challenging times of your data and politics career? Mahalo? I'll ask you since you're smiling. I hope it's something good.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too spicy, but 2 jobs ago, I was like in a chat and we would always tell each other when we were like feeling imposter syndrome, always like having the confidence of like a mediocre white guy, just because like, and just like stepping to the world with that. So like, asking for more money, even if you think personally, like you feel nervous about it, or like applying to that job that you feel like you're not 100% qualified for, because you are. And like, if you don't have all the skills, you can always learn it at the job. So that is something that I like try to tell myself every time I'm feeling down. or just feeling a little just like impostery.
Awesome. Stephanie, you want to go next?
I was going to say that's like the best advice ever. I feel like also like that is what I tell other people, especially if they're looking for to apply. Other than that, be like, remember why you're doing this, because you're going to get bogged down in a lot of the like everyday stuff. Because it's, you got into politics in order to like do this thing, this big lofty goal that you have, but now you have to like, I don't know, clean a very dirty data set, like, and it's taking you hours, but like, you're doing it because like eventually it's gonna like help you achieve your goal, but like right now you have to like deal with differently formatted text versus like text strings versus like number strings, and like figure out how to reformat everything. Just like remember your why, like come back to that.
Awesome. Jen?
I think separate from what has already been said, find your people, like have a mentor or multiple mentors that you can gut check a lot of things with. There is somebody who is at least a decade older than you who has been through a lot, and you should make friends with someone like that who can help you when you are struggling with a white dude who is not as great at his job as he thinks he is, who is trying to tell you how to do yours. Those are really tough pills to swallow, and you're probably going to have to swallow them a bunch. And having people around you that you can trust to like vent to and like problem solve, someone who can look at your resume and help guide you to your next step and help you make sure that you're not making rash decisions with super important things in your life, or walking away from a movement that you really care about because one person is like trying to ruin it. Everybody is going to you're going to have really difficult interactions with people who are also working at the movement the best way that they know how, and you're going to butt heads, and being able to like talk to other people and like problem solve, get it out, it's going to be really helpful for you. And like, don't blow up on your colleagues.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I will actually close this question out by answering it myself too. I think it was maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, somebody said, Democratic politics is just one big corporation. People move departments, but they don't, they change departments, but you're all still in the same business. And that kind of harkens back to the conversation we were having earlier about, be nice to people, make sure you're going to come across them again. Your reputation matters when you're out there applying for jobs. And so that was actually the thing that went off in my head, and I was like, ooh, I should like not just think of these campaigns as these like summer camp deals where I'm never going to see these people again, because that's not how it works, even though it feels like it at the time. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up a little bit early, give folks a few more minutes back in their day. We hope we don't have any more questions. We really hope you enjoyed this panel. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks for being part of Gain Power's program today. And thank you to our wonderful panelists for coming today. I really appreciate it. Everything you said is so brilliant and insightful. And I miss seeing all of your lovely faces around the office in some capacity. So it was good seeing you again. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.